Hey YouTube, welcome back to our channel. My name is Elena.
And I'm Bjorn.
And we are Viking Age reenactors and living historians here to talk with you about your favorite Viking shows.
Today we're taking a look at episode 11 of Vinland Saga. Let's take a look.
One of the things that I had written down is protecting Canute, and it was kind of starting to drive me like a little bit crazy that they were just basically like 360 bodyguarding him. It kind of struck me as odd because rulers and leaders had to be out there fighting. You know, they wouldn't just have like a whole
doing all the
unit
work for them.
Unit around them, you know, being like, protect the prince.
Yeah. I mean, like, they would have their own, like, retinue and their own bodyguard. Absolutely. But it's not like they'd be completely, like, indefensible or anything, like, by themselves. Like, they still had to participate and show that they were proper warriors and strong leaders and stuff. Like, that's just how you command respect in general.
Yeah.
And so, like, the reaction on that behalf too was kind of appropriate and fitting because everybody was giving him a bunch of shit because it's like, dude, you don't even talk. All you do is sit there and pray. Weak F, you know, like.
Yeah, I guess that's what it was. It was the amount of bodyguards, but also just the fact that he wouldn't do anything, basically. He wouldn't try to protect himself. He wouldn't try to basically do anything. He just stood there in a helmet. And that's not really what you want out of your prince, generally.
Nope.
In those days.
Nope.
So, as you had mentioned last week, I believe, that Canute fought with Thorkel at one point.
Okay. Yes.
However, we were watching them kind of fight against each other. He wasn't fighting against Canute, but he was, fighting against the Viking armies for the English, basically. Mm-hmm. So one of the questions that gets asked is if Thorkel the Tall, and he is a historic character, he is written about in the sagas. The big question that comes up is if he fought for the English against the Vikings in 1013, I believe was the year, how the heck did he end up fighting with Canute's armies a few years later? And one of the answers is, he was probably sellsword, and, he just kind of went where the wind blew him at any certain point. But I do like the way that this is setting up, if they're setting up the way that I think they are, where in the show, what Thorkel has done is he has kidnapped who he thought was Canute, basically. So I'm kind of curious if they're setting it up in the way where he does catch their attention, and in some way, shape, or another, as they're kind of dancing around each other, they decide that they like each other after all. Yeah,
very well could be. And yeah, that's actually a really good point. Going back to the beginning of the episode, they've been doing a lot of this, like this religious banter, mm-hmm. Between the Christians and pagans and just whatever else, and I appreciate it for the comedic relief in general. And because it's like kind of believable banter. But this idea that one of the guys in Thorkel's army was bringing up, saying that like, oh, I saw a statue of their Jesus god, and he looked weak and like sickly and shit. But that was like a legitimate thought that's like recorded from the Danish courts when I think it was when Harald Bluetooth was converting. And trying to get the Danes to convert, is essentially like Jesus Christ. If you look at him in art and everything, like he's depicted as like a very like skinny, sickly kind of dude, and that's like to emphasize the whole like suffering for man's sins, mm-hmm. and to show like the trials that he put himself through, for like to purify himself, and the whole 40 days for Lenten, like all the whole biblical stories. But to a bunch of Vikings, he just looked like some sick, frail, wimpy dude, and they were like, "What? Why? No thanks, we're good. We got one of those. His name's Loki, and he does plenty more than this guy. His magic's way cooler. He turned himself into a horse, and then he did other things." But yeah, and I just think it's really funny what they're talking about, this depiction of him looking weak and frail, but then also famously Harald Bluetooth converted to Christianity and united all of Denmark under Christianity. And the runestone that he raised in commemoration of that act actually had a depiction of Jesus Christ, and it was a Nordic depiction of Jesus. And it had him kind of like bound and everything on the side of the rock, and you should look up the Yellowstone if you haven't seen this, because it's beautiful. But it's very interesting in the sense that it actually shows like a very like physical Jesus. Like he's not like emaciated, and like frail, he's almost kind of like breaking out of his chains, like he broke those cuffs, and it's just like this very kind of like Norse Jesus Christ, you know what I mean, who's like this very powerful confrontational Old Testament style kind of godlike figure. And I just think it's interesting that they kind of reflected on that like common image of Jesus even in contemporary time as well.
Yeah, and I also kind of like the fact that they did it in a way that other shows haven't done, whereas other shows tend to kind of riff off of the fact that, you know, Jesus is this dead god, basically, whereas Thor and Odin are well alive and, you know, very strong and everything like that. Here they're actually commenting on his frailty, not the fact that, you know, he's bound up and dead.
Yeah, he like literally died.
Yeah.
But I mean, like Odin also literally died at a point and then kind of came back from that shit, so. True,
which is an interesting parallel.
There's a lot of parallels.
Yeah.
I mean, even the whole Odin being hung on Yggdrasil and stabbed with his own spear, very similar to Jesus Christ being crucified over however many days and being...
And he did it for knowledge.
And being stuck with a spear by Pontius Pilate. Like, it's very similar. Valkyries we got to see as well, which was pretty cool, since we're talking about the mythological depictions of people. So Valkyries were absolutely a thing, and the general idea of what they depicted of Valkyries coming down to a battle and taking the dead away to Asgard was pretty spot on and delightful. Odin is actually supposed to like command the Valkyries to go out, and Freya like leads them essentially, and they go and wander the battlefields and kind of like scavenge the dead, which is a pretty cool sight, or a pretty cool like concept. Because I almost see them like in my own head scavenging the bodies like amongst the ravens and the wolves, like eating the rest, and then like a Valkyrie coming over and like grabbing it and whatever. That's just that's where my own brain goes. But of note is that there's this very romanticized image of what a Valkyrie is, and they often get depicted like they did in the episode we just watched, of being these like beautiful, busty, dummy thick ladies in like resplendent armor, like beautiful gowns on like horseback, and like they come and like take them away, and it's almost like I almost feel like it's got these like 72 virgins in heaven kind of vibe, and like it kind of bothers me a bit because one, I'm like just don't sexualize these bad ladies first off, because they'll kick your ass. And they will kick your ass because if you read the literary sources, they're actually described as being terrifying. Like they come down and they're either like drenched in blood and gore and like battle dressed, or they literally come down and are like as described basically as trolls. Like they're these vicious, disgusting, terrifying creatures of battle that like will rip you to shreds. And that's such a cooler vision. Because it's not like you come down and there's like this light and then like some angel comes down and like collects you up. It's like Grendel is dragging you away to hell and you're just like, no! Oh god, no!
And then you end up in Valhalla.
And you end up in Valhalla. Like, what the was that?
And that is how your soul dies.
And that's what happens. Yeah, going to Valhalla is such a joyous time.
Which actually...
It would be terrifying, I feel like.
Which actually, like, talking about parallels here, the same thing happens with angels in Christianity, where angels are kind of depicted as these, like, very nice, like, pretty angelic types, whereas in the Bible, they're actually terrifying as well.
It's like a giant ball of eyeballs with wings and claws. That's why they always gotta go be not afraid.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified of our future videos, and we'll see you in the next one.